Hello, Priya. Thank you so much for joining us on the Everyday Mystic.
Thanks for having me, Corissa. I'm so happy to
Well, so happy you're here too. I'll thank our mutual friend Shelley publicly for connecting us and introducing us. And when she saw through one of my emails that I was doing this podcast, she immediately thought of you and connected us. And then we had this opportunity to chat. And I immediately fell in love with you and who you are and what you're doing. So I'm just so grateful that you're coming on today to talk about your journey and the work that you're doing and the service that you are providing to humanity, which is really, I believe, what all of my guests are importantly doing in the world. It's that service to the soul and to spirit and to that nature within us to open up to that. And you're doing that in such a beautiful way. Before we get into how you're doing all of that, let's talk a little bit about who you are and where you've come from and what you're currently identifying with, I guess, lately. And then we can go back into a little history of what got you here. But who are you today? Who's Priya with us right now?
Oh, such a tiny, simple question. So easy to respond to. Maybe I'll just touch on the kind of who I am in terms of the work that I do. My favorite part of who I am, I guess, or who I'm becoming and learning to be, is a channel. I channel a group of sixth-dimensional beings, sixth-dimensional masters, who I call Jennai. They don't care what we call them. So I call them Jennai, and I love that part of the work because it's so connective and so much larger than the stresses of everyday life. And so wonderful, actually, because you get caught up in that energy. So that's my favorite part. The serious part I do when I want to be serious and very focused on earthly life. That part is a social science researcher. I'm working in knowledge justice between different ways of knowing the world, different ways of being in the world, and being recognized for that knowledge. And that work focuses on the common good. So I guess in a way, the two are very much part of the same story, just playing in different kind of playgrounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. You're in different sandboxes. You've got the more serious research-backed theories, and then you've got the living it out more you get to play in your spiritual sandbox with that work. I love that you're holding both of those spaces so beautifully. And I know that your dissertation had something to do with restoring and reclaiming your stories or somehow examining story in your life. Is that right?
Yeah, so I love the word restoring, spelled very specifically, R-E in brackets, story, S-T-O-R-Y in brackets, I-N-G. And it's this magic in a word. It's this constellation of ideas and ways of playing with our knowledge about ourselves, our knowledge about each other and everything else. So it's got story, restory, store, restore, all packed in there. And it's such a powerful constellation because it invites possibility, it invites reimagination, and it invites us to really ask ourselves if the way we are knowing the world is serving us. And if I think about your part of your restoring that you share in your work, the restoring of claiming your identity and claiming the story of your childhood and your personhood, mean, it's such a powerful process. It's so catalytic. So I love that word. I use it everywhere I can.
It's a powerful concept. Oh my gosh. The fact that we can and get to examine, and when we look at our a life of self-examination, or a life of being on a path of spiritual discovery and realization and healing, restoring is such a huge part of that. And I think some people don't feel like they can actually change anything about their story. Like, oh yeah, that happened to me. These things happened. This is the way I was raised. This is the society I was raised in. I can't change that. But I believe, and I think what we share in is that we can change our responses to it. We can change how that story lives in us and how we then react from it, or are wise from it, or what we've learned from it, right? There's just so many things that happen. It's not about changing the facts. It's about living with them differently, I guess. Do you look at it the same way?
Definitely. And I think we don't have to choose the version. It's not a self-validating process, although I guess in a way it is, but it's not a reductionist process. You don't have to choose the version you want and deny all the other versions. That's also not true. But we can reclaim parts of the story that were hidden, that were contorted, that were denied to ourselves, or that we denied to ourselves. So we can reclaim those stories, and then those stories give us a different space to rest as we launch ourselves forward, as we remake ourselves, and they give us a different place to rest as we meet different parts of other people. Because if we allow us that, then we're more open to allowing other people to reclaim parts of themselves, and more open to meeting those people, those parts of those people.
Yeah. I read something recently and saying, so many people are quick to accept the theory that, our cellular structure regenerates, every 7 years. You've probably heard that before. It's like, oh, we're a new body every 7 years because our cells have all turned over by then. And, but less likely, or less, people are as quick to accept that we're also a regenerated self in our minds, a regenerated self in our emotional body, or that we can be, right? That we can evolve in those ways and evolve in spirit as well. So tell us a little bit about how you went from, and I don't know if you went from one to the other. It sounds like you're doing all things all at the same time in your life, but was there a progression for you of going from more serious PhD researcher into the spiritual and more esoteric work, or were they always interwoven?
Carried both parts, but I thought they were part of very different stories. I was taught, and I believed, that the one part, the spiritual, the esoteric, the richness of that part of my being belonged at home. That was hobby stuff. It belonged at home. It was what I did in the quiet of my own space. And the research, and before the research, I was a game ranger. So before the research, I was a game ranger. And that was kind of what you did in public. That was how you served the world. And the spiritual stuff was how you served yourself. So they were always there. They cohabitated, but they weren't very friendly. They were in different parts of the house. And one of the things that the PhD did is it made me question science. I started off advocating for science, wanting to strengthen science, and by the end of the PhD, I realized that our assumptions about science are just that, they're assumptions. And actually, if you go into the research, there are mountains of research by queer scholars and feminist scholars and race scholars. And, all of these scholars have done this work that show us that our assumptions about science are faulty, that we've artificially elevated science and given it powers that other ways of knowing share. It's not that science doesn't do some things well, but science isn't the only knowledge that helps us to understand ourselves and the world. And doing the PhD helped me to reclaim that and to recognize and fight for being one whole person wherever I show up. Drawing on the science, but also drawing on the metaphysics and the energy work and the emotional work as part of the entirety of my being. And then I think more importantly, offering that to others, recognizing that we all are complex in this way, and yet we're one person, where each of us has all these different facets, but we're one person with one being, and recognizing the complexity allows that being to shine more fully.
Yeah, I know. I feel like it's our souls are calling out for us to see it in its fullness and in its wholeness, and wanting us to experience that for ourselves, of what that feels like, this blissful, joyful, loving feeling of that wholeness. And yet we all want to compartmentalize everything. We want to pack away, and be professional person over here and fun person over there and, angry person over here and traumatized person over there. It's like putting all us as a human, our human experience, in all these little compartments. So for you, what was it that, because I would imagine you must have gone through something personal to start to integrate all of this, so that you could be just one being and not Priya, the researcher, and Priya, the spiritual person.
Yeah. Corissa, I think we identify these peak moments, but really we have this series of unfolding self-discoveries. We discover ourselves again and again and again and again. And often it's through trauma, but sometimes through immense joy. But each of those moments is just a way to see ourselves through a different light of energy, through a different illumination. So yes, I've had many, as most of us have. Some of the highlights, perhaps some of the bigger moments in my life. There are so many crowding in. So perhaps the first one was growing up in South Africa, being non-white in an apartheid country, a racially divided country, but also being privileged in that country. So I was non-white, but there were categories of non-white, and I was at the top of the category of privilege. And when you're in that context, you so badly want to be recognized, you so badly want to be equal, to be valued, and yet you know that there is something really hinky and smelly going on when it's at the cost of other people. And you reach for that, and then you have to fight with yourself about it and figure out how you both claim your worthiness, but do it in a way that isn't at the cost of other people's worthiness. So I was very lucky. I got a beautiful position in a Big 5 game reserve. I got to work in the wildlands of South Africa. It was spectacular, in pristine wilderness, in a reserve called Umfolozi Game Reserve. That was completely enlivening and awakening. But also challenging, because it was under threat. And so you have this relationship of extreme poverty with many of the people living outside of the reserve and this threat to other forms of life within the reserve. And you have to kind of navigate your way into the truth of that. And I don't think anybody's figured it out, but it does make for rich self-discovery. Yeah. And maybe I can just pop up 2 or 3 other quick moments. I was sexually assaulted when I was 19. That, of course, was a very big catalytic moment and unfolded for about 20 years before I was able to reintegrate and reclaim my sense of being coming out of that. I had a moment on a rooftop. I think so many of us have had moments where we've come to the edge of wanting to exit, to just leave it all behind. That was quite a big moment. I was on a rooftop. I was very numb. I had completely checked out of my emotional being. And I got up on the rooftop because I thought, well, if this is what life is, then it's okay, I'm ready to exit. And I was saved by a little flower. Amazing what saves you in life. There was a little flower on a bush down below, and I thought, it's not high enough. I can't risk jumping. So I got off, and by the time I had gotten downstairs, I had acknowledged that if you're going to enter such a big moment in life, in death, you should at least feel something. You should at least be present in that moment. And then a glorious moment was the first time I channeled, the first time I received a message, and that was from the ocean. And the ocean was teaching me about the sovereign self. It was the very first time I'd heard about sovereignty. It was about 3.5 years ago, I think, before the concept became so current, so part of our consciousness. And at the time, I was struggling with responsibility and duty. I was completely overwhelmed. And the ocean just said to me that sovereignty is accountable freedom. And when you serve from a sovereign position, you serve from your freedom, not from your servitude. You don't give up yourself, rather you claim yourself more fully. And in that claiming, you offer self-expression, and that self-expression serves.
Yeah, right. And it's like just by being your fullness, your wholeness, your trueness, you're serving. By showing up as our most enlightened or our highest selves, we are doing the best we can for humanity, right? It's like it's why I encourage people to heal and to do the work and to go down into these harder, darker places, because it's not that I want them to experience darkness and experience the hell that is healing sometimes, but it's the moving through that to get out on the other side, to be and to say and to sit here like you are right now and say, I am already free. I'm free of the story. I'm free of those challenges and blocks that I set up as, whether it's something that protected me or something that, helped me avoid and distract, or whatever it is. And to get to a place where all of that is integrated and then you sort of work from there is so beautiful to be, I guess for you, the way I see it is that you are fully yourself and unashamed about that. And you get to experience life in such a more rich and joyful place because you're not hiding anymore. Yeah, or just doing the non-hiding work. And sometimes, yes, I think we do want to go back and escape into hiding, escape into, back into the shadow, like slink back into the shadows. And that's definitely part of the path too. But I just love, and I'm celebrating you, that you are, showing up in your fullness in this way. And that is what we need. And even if you or anybody never did any direct work with someone or did, service for anybody, you just becoming your wholeness is the service, is to me the gift that we give to humanity, and to our fellow humans here in this experience is our own wholeness, our own fullness.
Yeah. Jennai talks about our unique language of love. And they say that each of us, every being, every form of consciousness in the universe has got a unique language of love, because the energy of the universe is unconditional love, unconditional light. And so each of us holds our own unique language of love. And when we align with ourselves, when we pursue our own joy, our own desires as in conscious desires, not hedonism, but this conscious desire to be, to become, to explore, to discover, when we align with our truth, our unique language of love is what is expressed. And that love then energizes everything around us. And it's that love that then serves. It's that expression of love that offers that service around us. And I love that. I love the idea of being part of this intrinsic whole, but holding a unique part of what that whole is. And representing that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is. It is a one. On the one hand, it is feeling completely in that oneness and in that wholeness of all that is, and yet being a unique expression of the oneness. So it's like you're still the oneness, but you get to uniquely express it here on this earth plane. And that's where all the fun comes in. So we've talked a little bit about fun. You love to be in a joyful place in your creation and in your discovery and in the healing work that you're offering. So tell us a little bit more about your the role that fun and joy play in your life and in your work.
I've had this on and off relationship with fun, and it's my fault. It's not the fun's fault. I get difficult and I forget, and I try to have fun seriously. And it goes off somewhere and waits for me to come to my senses. But I do love being playful. And I think when we're playful, we again open possibility for ourselves. When we're serious, we are defending things. To be serious is to hold ground. It's to hold things firm. It's to recognize truths and stand by them. When we're more playful, we open to the possibility of shifting, of transforming, rediscovering, without the need to commit. So when you're playful, you don't have to commit from this to that. You don't have to remake yourself and commit to it. What you can do is just play a little bit and discover how it serves you, whether it aligns with you, whether it even feels good. So far, I haven't found anybody who doesn't like playing, but it could happen. The universe is full of complexity. The one place I do play very often is with words and with language. I love that. As with restoring, remembering, and those kinds of words. But when we play, we actually open more widely. That's been my experience. We open more widely. We encounter a more open energy from those we interact with. Because when we're serious, our energy is very stable. And like I said, it can be quite defensive. It can be quite firm. Whereas when we're playful, we're agreeing that nobody is committing to anything. We're just kind of seeing where the silliness takes us.
Where's it going to go?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what would you recommend to somebody who may have, because I think most of us sort of adults in the modern world can get way too serious about life, about themselves, about their traumas, all of it's easy to get serious, but not as easy to get playful. What do you recommend to people as a ways and means to kind of get into that playful place, or is it just very individual for people?
I think we can help each other along. I do think play is a unique vibration in each of us. It strikes a unique chord. But I think we can also help each other and have a sort of collective energy of play. The easiest way is to let a child be the boss of you and just do whatever they tell you to do, fully and wholeheartedly. Really commit to whatever they ask you to do. Children understand play and they understand fun and carefreeness. So that's the simplest way. I had a client a few weeks ago and I suggested to her that she ask everybody in her life who she usually complains to, who she usually shares her sadness and her struggles with. I suggested to her that she ask all of them to start sending her jokes. She should invite them to communicate with her through jokes. And within a week, everything changed for her. And I mean everything. One of the long-standing issues she had resolved, her relationship with her partner improved, and she had fun. She said she couldn't keep up with all the jokes. There were just so many of them coming in.
It's beautiful. And what a gift to the people that she was communicating with too. They got a relief of being able to communicate in a different way to her. I love that.
And then currently my own mission in play is I'm learning how to play the spoons. I didn't even know you could play spoons. I am terrible at it. I barely manage to hold the things and go click, click, click. But it's so much fun.
Oh, that's cool. And how did you get onto spoons? Is it something that you heard and saw, or how did that come into your life?
Yeah, there's this woman on YouTube called Abby the Spoon Lady. And I must say I'm not particularly interested in the spoons. They just, kind of clank together. But when you watch her, she is so into it. She is so taken by the fun and the things she does with those spoons. She whacks all sorts of things, and she's smiling and happy, and she doesn't have teeth, and she just gets into it and plays and plays and plays. And I watch her videos just for the joy of seeing her have so much fun. And I figured if I learn how to play the spoons, maybe I can channel a bit of Abby.
Oh, that's beautiful. Speaking of content and watching things, this is another, I think, simple thing that people could do is to just stop watching joyless and fearful content that's a starting place for people to get into that playful energy, because there's so much content out there that's designed to keep us in fear and to terrorize us and to put us in that quite opposite place of joy. And so that could be a really good starting point for some people who may be really caught up in that and think that, oh, I have to stay up on the news, let's say. But I believe that there is a lot that's built into that news that keeps us in terror on purpose, that if when you step away from it, oh, so much lightness just immediately happens just by not doing all of that kind of doom scrolling.
Yeah, I love that idea. I don't watch the news. Things happen, and I have no idea. And my bestie knows that I don't watch the news. So if something is significant that has changed the shape of the world, then she usually lets me know because she knows that I'm just oblivious. And it makes such a huge difference because I don't wake up with an injection of fear every day. Yeah. I do watch stories about how people are working together, stories about how people are discovering and designing more energy efficient ways to live, kinder ways to live, more connected ways to live. I love those. And if I want to watch something, I watch those because those are also part of the stories of our collective consciousness at the moment. And they coexist. You know, the news is designed to engage us in a particular way, and one of the best ways to engage us is through fear and scandal. Right? Mm-hmm. But it's not the only story. And there you go, the idea of restorying again. You know, you can restory how you see the world, how you hear the world, just by choosing how you turn on and how you turn off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When someone comes to do work with you and you're channeling for them or with them, are you always tapping into Jennai to get messages for that person, or are you also tapping into their guides or beings that may be specific to your client?
So I channel Jennai usually in our open sessions or when we're doing a particular exploration. Jennai give us not higher order, but metaphysical teachings. They are teachers, and they teach the metaphysics. They don't provide political commentary. They don't provide personal decision-making opinions. You know, that's not the level of service that they offer. What they offer is sovereign service, teaching us how to reclaim our power. So when I work one-on-one, I will work with personal guides. Sometimes loved ones, deceased ones will come through, frenemies, you know, all of those kinds of beings will come through. I don't do crossing over, I do healing work. And so when those beings come through, it's to help us to understand where you're stuck and what the pathways forward are. I'm no good at finding out where the engagement ring is and where the will was last seen, you know, I'm useless at that. Other beings that I channel that will come through are the earth. I've done a lot of channeling with the earth coming through, sometimes the sun or other celestial beings. Ancestors, cultural spirits, beings like that will sometimes come through. It just depends, really. It depends on what is being asked, and then the appropriate being will come through and offer insight.
Yeah. I know that you said earlier, or maybe it was in a past conversation of ours, that you have at home or within your home life and in your childhood, you did have this open connection and you were exploring these things on your own. So did you always have this ability? Or I guess I'll phrase it this way. Were you always aware of this ability that you had to channel, or did it come to you later in life?
I always felt connected, but I was very frustrated that my receptor wasn't working. I knew that I should be able to be telepathic and like speak to animals and things like that. The channeling started a little before COVID, actually. It started maybe 6 months, maybe a bit more, before COVID had started. That's amazing how that's become our reference for how we Yeah, so like I said, the first channeling was with the ocean, and I was completely shocked and besotted. At the time, I had been watching a lot of Abraham Hicks, wanting to channel, feeling like that was part of the work that I really, really wanted to be able to do. So the ocean spoke to me, and then I started downloading Akashic records. So not personal records, stories of particular lifetimes, but the collective record, the records of metaphysics, of our shared knowledge and understanding. And what I was accessing was how to access the Akashic records. They were teaching me how to do that. And then thereafter, slowly, other beings started to appear. First individuals, and individuals within the Jennai collective, and then the collective itself. Yeah.
What kind of state do you get into to receive, or is it just a surprise? They show up whenever.
So I'm a conscious channel, so I don't go into a trance state. I believe my voice changes a little bit depending on which being, but not in a hugely dramatic way. When I channel, you'll hear me correcting myself because I have a dialogue with them, so I'll translate, and then they'll say, no, you're not precise. Retranslate, until I get it right. And if I can't find the words, then they'll give me an image, a metaphor, something like that. So I'm a conscious channel. I do need to align when I'm teaching a class, when I'm about to work with other people. And that's more about me rather than Jennai. It's about me feeling calmer, more open, less self-conscious. I get very self-conscious sometimes when I channel. It's better now, but I used to be very nervous. But other than that, I'm always accompanied. So you'll say something to me, and for the next few days, Jennai and I will have a running conversation about it. They'll keep unfolding it for me as I ask, as I explore. It's absolutely awesome having them there constantly. It's such a relief to be accompanied in a way that I can feel and sense.
Oh yeah, and to know that we're not alone in our experience. I mean, we obviously have each other as, other humans too, but to have other guides that are, hold the wisdom of the universe and hold true unconditional love for us, and that level of purity versus, your best friend, as much as you could love that person, they've got their own shit that they've dealt with in life. And sometimes, that can come out towards you, or, they're maybe not the clearest channel for you. So, to have that kind of support is beautiful. And we all do have access to that, don't we? We all have access to that guidance and support. What would you recommend to people who may have never accessed their own guides or access that kind of energy to begin to open up to it?
So firstly, I think we all have, but in snippets and small pieces. We all have those moments where we feel guided, or where we make a decision that makes no logical, rational sense, but we know it's the right thing to do. And that is communication. That is guidance from our higher selves, from our guides, from whoever is supporting us in that moment. So really what we want to do is learn how to do that more consciously and intentionally, so that we can be tuned in and know that we are receiving guidance, feel aligned in that guidance. There are so many experiments. Let's see. So one of the easiest ones to start with that I offer when I work with somebody new who wants to deepen their relationship is simply to close the eyes and connect to the heart or the third eye, whichever one attracts you more. You take a few breaths to help you relax. And then you pay attention, and let's use the heart as an example. You pay attention to the heart center. Get a base reading on it. And then you ask a question, right? You ask something that you would like to know. So I might ask, should I move countries? Should I go off somewhere else? And the heart will act as a communication device. It opens when you're in alignment with your desire, when you're in alignment with what you want for yourself, or when you're in alignment with your highest good. It opens up and it lightens. It shrinks and closes down and becomes a bit static and stuck when you are moving away from yourself. So it's not what the guides want you to do, but the measure is moving towards yourself or away from yourself. And the guides help to amplify that communication. So that's one of the easiest ways. Just learn to read your heart center. Works every time. The heart will open when you're doing something that aligns with your truth, and it closes down when you're working against yourself. The other big thing to do is to ask, to say to them, I want to hear you more clearly, and I have no idea how to do it. Bring me the teachers, bring me the resources, give me the dreams. Please communicate with me more consciously. And then they bring you to the points in your path that help with that.
Yeah, the asking is so huge. I feel like we all could benefit from asking in life in general, not just of our spiritual guides, but just having more open communication, asking for what we need and what we want. And I see that as a way of us more stepping into ourselves more fully, to say, oh, I actually am going to ask for what I need, or ask for what I want, ask for these connections, rather than just waiting and being on this receiving end of whatever it might be, whether it's spiritual guidance or a promotion or a lover to come in or whatever it might be. And so getting into that rhythm of asking for is so powerful, which I know is, a large part of manifestation work. You mentioned Abraham Hicks earlier, and, the work of law of attraction and the work of doing anything where you are in a co-creative place of asking for what you need, want, desire to come through in your life is a powerful difference than I think how we all kind of operate from our default, because most of us weren't raised that way. It's like, oh, maybe you ask for things, but you ask for only what's socially acceptable. Because if you start to ask for things that aren't, then people are like, oh, no, you don't ask for that. Right? I mean, you get suppressed real early when you start to go outside of the box.
Yeah. And, it's this difference between, in the Vedic system, they say karma and dharma. And we think karma is you're going to get punished for what you've done. And nobody is quite sure what dharma is, but it's in there somewhere. But actually, karma or fate or destiny, that's our default setting. That is when we enact our unconscious programming and we just go along with the flow and wait for life to happen from outside of us and move us along. And when we shift to dharma, we shift to the conscious self. That means we shift from waiting to see where the car we're in takes us to getting into the driver's seat and saying, okay, this is where I want to go. And this is how I want to get there. And GPS, can you please help me? And road signs, can you help me? And passenger, can you help me? And, you call on the universe then to help you to pursue the path you've chosen.
Mm.
And I think so many people wait to meet their moment of fate or destiny. And they don't realize that, in fact, that purpose, that moment of awakening and claiming the self and finding your purpose, that arrives when you decide that you're getting into the driver's seat, and then it blooms and it awakens inside of you. It doesn't arrive when you stay on your default setting. Your default setting is just the software you came pre-programmed with. And there are some good things and some bad things and some interesting things and boring things in there. But the purpose of life is to take that default setting and reconfigure it. And reconfigure it into the way that aligns with your desires, with your will, with your creativity, your aspiration, your joy.
Yeah, and why not, right? Why not live that way? It's just like, come on. Even if you didn't believe in any of that, doesn't that sound better? So I'm urging people for those who, may be, I don't need to urge anyone. I think that when it hits your heart and it feels right and it feels resonant, then you move into it more. And feeling resistant to something, and your resistance to, maybe it's just you're not ready, or it's not the right thing. So I'm not here to push anybody onto any sort of specific path. I think, however, when you spend some time exposing yourself to more of the mystery and unlocking some doors and following some darker, lesser known paths by taking the wheel every so often, seeing what that feels like, then we start to build up the courage and build up the desire even to do that even more and more. So I love that, the metaphor of, getting into the driver's seat and taking that, really stepping into the sovereignty, as you mentioned earlier, of the self, that you are here for great things and here for beautiful things, and to have some fun in figuring out what that all is, and just being in joy. So do you feel like being in joy or living in joy is one of our greater purposes?
I think joy is a symptom of alignment. I think when we align with who we want to be and how we want to be, then the universe communicates in joy. So joy isn't something you pursue. Joy is what it feels like when you are aligning with yourself. It's not a choice. You don't have to say, okay, I want joy or I'll live without it. Joy arises as you align. If I think about when I channel, it's not work. I'm so happy to be in that energy. I feel so connected and so purposeful, and I love the work that I do when I channel. The sovereign self work is just so what I care about in the world, and that joy is it's the evidence of the alignment.
I love that.
Yeah, so I guess the thing is to give yourself permission to pursue the path you want to pursue. And the more joyful it becomes, the more The universe is confirming to you that, hey, yeah, you're aligned with yourself. Unique language of love. Here you come.
Are you feeling connected to Jennai now? Is there anything that wants to come through?
Let's have a look. Jennai comes through. They say that it is our delight and pleasure to be able to interact with you in this way. We have never been in a podcast before. It is a new experience and a delightful one. You have been talking about playfulness and lightheartedness, and we love to be playful. And we have many friends who believe that in order to be playful, you must twist your truth so that you can get hold of a play that seems attractive to the other. This has not been our experience. Our experience is that true playfulness is aligned. The best jokes are the jokes that are true. The best jokes are the jokes that invite the other into the laughter. You speak of playfulness, and we would say to you that this entire universe that we co-inhabit is about play. We play in so many ways together. We play at being serious, and we play at discovering our bodies, and we play at losing our bodies and surrendering our bodies. We play at being individual, and we play at being so much more vast than the individual focus that an embodiment holds. This entire universe is a universe of play. Sometimes it is more fun than other times, though. That does not have to be the opposite of fun. Our third dimensional friends are often so serious, so overwhelmed by their experiences of dissonance and dis-ease and distress. And we do not deny these energies. We recognize them. We have experienced them ourselves. But we would say to you that it does not have to be the entirety of your experience. You can play as a way to explore who you might be. You can play simply to discover the moment. Instead of trying to manage the entirety of your life, you could play simply to be here now, in this moment, without the need for that play to serve you in any way except joy. We invite you to invite your guides, to invite the earth, to invite the wind and the water. Invite them to play with you and see what happens. You will find that you get a very different response to when you are simply trying to control your experience as you interact.
Thank you for that message. Thank you so much for joining us here and for your beautiful openness and the work of you exploring your own wholeness and your own connection to everything that you are and the way that you're expressing all of that in the world. Thank you for doing that work. It's been such a pleasure, Priya. I'll look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you, Corissa. It's been lovely to be here and explore and restore. And thank you for opening this space for us to meet in this way.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's my joy. I love it so much. Like you were saying earlier when you chatted, it's not work. It is pure joy, and so happy to be in it with you. I'm going to share any links that you would love to share with the audience in the show notes. So I'll drop those in for anyone who'd like to connect to you and continue some conversations or go into some deeper healing or get some guidance that you provide. Thank you so much again, sister. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your night.
And thank you, everyone.
Yay. How'd that feel for you?